All right, well, we are here, Cam. We're going like numero uno right now. This is the first time I've ever done this.
Dude, I'm excited. Are you good at editing? So, like, because I say inappropriate things sometimes. Because I was just about to say it, but I don't want our wives to get mad at us.
That probably won't.
But I am a little rebellious. Okay.
Should we start over again? Or should we just edit? We can edit.
Yeah, you should edit it. You may like it down the road. You never know. Or we can put it on the B-roll.
Yeah.
You know, the bloopers.
That would be really. That's actually a really good idea. To
I
have
think
some
every
like, funny
podcast
bloopers
do
at
that.
the end
Yep.
of every one.
That's why, like Joe Rogan. I don't know how he does the whole. Like, there's no editing. It's all live. He just rolls with it.
Huh?
Did you know that? Do you know his is live? So on YouTube, on Facebook.
I've always watched the videos. I've never noticed.
Yeah.
I've never watched them live.
So you can watch his podcast live. So there's no editing, whatever happens. And so that's a little scary. It'd be a little bit scary for the guest.
Okay, so something funny that I didn't realize that I did with you.
Yeah.
I was telling a buddy that I was going to do this, and you were going to come on, and I didn't even know, and I kept calling you Bam Bam.
Really?
He's like, do you call him Cam, or do you call him Bam Bam? And I was like, I thought I called him Cam. And he's like, you keep referring to him as Bam Bam. And it's like,
That's awesome.
it's like, I don't know if I do that so they know who I'm talking about, because
Right.
maybe they know you better as Bam Bam.
Right.
Like, do people call you Bam Bam?
Yeah. I think they only call me Bam Bam when they forget my name,
Okay.
which is fine because I call everyone dude.
Yeah.
Or like bro.
Oh.
Like, I'm so bad with names. The restaurant ruined me because I meet so many people, and it's hard because you want to validate everybody.
Yep.
But I'm really bad with
Oh.
names.
Ask Jenna. So if I meet someone, it's, what's going on? And if I don't say their name, my next line is, I'm so bad, this is my wife. And then I'll stop. And she knows if I say this is my wife, she knows I
knows
don't
it.
know who I'm talking about.
That's pretty clever, though.
And so she knows to set
My
me and
wife
say,
would do that for me.
hey, what's your name again? So like almost to make fun of me.
Right.
But we have the system because it happens all the time where I'll see someone, I'm really good at remembering their face,
Right.
but I don't have names to save my life. So it's always like, hey, this is my wife. And she's like, what's your name? And that's kind of like our way to make sure I get around not looking too stupid.
Oh, it's hard.
But
We're all self-centered people, too.
we love to hear our names.
We do. We like to hear our names. And we don't, when we introduce ourselves, I think we're all guilty of not really listening to the other person's name.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're just worried about how you look and how you sound. And so, yeah, I'm trying to be better. But with the amount of people that I talk to, it's hard.
Yeah.
But ADHD doesn't help either.
No. But what I want to do is just, I think you have so many fun stories. Obviously, I have kind of an inside look
Right.
into
That's what
how Bam Bam has become Bam Bam.
Yeah.
I mean, we did marry sisters, and so
We did marry sisters.
that happens.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to do is, maybe some people don't know like the whole story, and it's
Right.
kind of cool. Like, you ended up in Arizona.
Uh-huh.
You were living in Provo, Heber, California kid. Ended up in Arizona. I don't even remember what took you to Arizona.
It was to expand that little lead generation company that I have with Andrew. My
That's
best
right.
friend.
Was that C&D?
C&D Marketing.
That's
Yep.
right.
So we knocked doors to get just basic info, and we sold that info to local insurance agents. Just so we basically got quotes for people, and local agents would just pay us $5 to $10 a lead, and they had like 3 or 4 times the closing ratio on our leads over the stuff they were buying, and so it actually went pretty good. So I moved to Arizona because we started getting a lot of requests for it there, and so yeah, I moved down there to kind of expand on that. And with the warm weather,
You guys like knocking doors and
yeah, just recruit a team because I had sold alarms for 9 years with
Yeah.
Pinnacle, and so it was nothing new, and it's much easier to ask somebody their, birthday, their address, and what kind of car they drive instead of trying to sell them a 3-year contract
not collecting.
agreement. Excuse me,
It's not an agreement.
it's an agreement.
It's just $1 a day.
It's not a contract. It's just an agreement. You just want to put a sign in your yard.
You'll be a
So-
marketing house for
Yeah.
us.
And so, but with the warm weather down there, so I had been barbecuing just kind of for fun here in Utah.
Were you doing smoking though? Like,
Yeah.
Or were you just doing like the grill?
No,
I don't remember.
I never
before
really
you went.
grilled. I never really cooked. So I saw it on TV. This was 2008 or 9. I always mix it up, but I saw Barbecue Pitmasters on TV. It was the very first episode. It was about this time of year. I was flipping through hockey playoff games.
Okay.
And for some reason, it just stuck with me, and it looked really cool. And like I said, I don't cook, I don't grill, but I went to Lowe's that night. There's another ADHD thing.
Did you
it's
really?
called impulsivity. So I went to Lowe's that night and bought a little $40 Brinkman bullet smoker.
You watched one episode, and you're like, I'm going to go buy a smoker.
Yeah.
Of course
I was smoking ribs like 2 days later. And then my life took a dive after that. But yeah, so I was cooking in the backyard. Kind of took the winter off the next year because it's just hard to cook on those things in the wintertime here. But when I moved to Arizona, with the population and the warm weather, there's a much more established barbecue scene. And so I just kind of immersed myself, and I couldn't really control it, which there's really only been one other thing, well, 2 other things. My wife, 1, that's right. And 2 was hockey when I was 8 years old. So when I saw Wayne Gretzky play hockey on TV, it was a very similar story. First time I ever saw hockey on TV, I was out on roller skates, like my mom's disco, like
with the
high
4 wheels
lace,
and like the brake on the front.
No, like leather white boots that went halfway up my shins. I tacked a piece of drywall to a broomstick and was out there with a tennis ball, like obsessed. And then I ended up playing through college. And so, not that I went to college, but we can tell that story later. So barbecue was kind of the same thing. And so when I got down there, I bought a new smoker. One of the biggest lies I've ever told my wife was with that smoker. I don't know if you want to hear that story. Do you know that story?
Like how much it costs?
Yeah.
I don't think I do that story.
I mean, it's not a big deal now, but I mean, back then when, the money isn't great, there was a smoker that one of the guys on the show used, and I wanted it. It was like $400.
Okay.
It's a Weber.
Okay.
Anyways, I'm like, honey, there's a Labor Day sale. It's $149. I have to get it today. And she's like, fine. Anyway, after I won my first competition, I told her how much it really cost.
After you paid it back.
So it worked out, but it was a bold-faced lie. So yeah, down there I got into the forums, like, online, and started learning, and I could cook a lot more down there because of how warm it was.
Okay.
And so I started kind of loitering at this barbecue shop called Barbecue Island, and I was there probably every day. It's kind of like you in a golf for me now, like it's my little hideout. Anyway, that turned into cooking in a little charity / barbecue contest at a big Harley Davidson dealership in Mesa.
Okay, so I have to ask, you go from $40 Lowe's ADHD purchase at night
right.
to entering a competition for Harley Davidson?
No, it was at a big Harley Davidson dealership. Okay. So this was for a Memorial Day bike, like a ride.
Okay.
So all the veterans, like there's supposed to be 200 or 300 riders.
Okay.
So the deal was bring meat, we're going to feed the riders, and then we're going to judge the meat at the end.
Had you ever done any type of competition before?
Nothing.
What made you think that you could do that?
Well, I cook like crazy at home, like just for me, for friends, and I'm just kind of like, why not? Because I was kind of obsessed with the whole competition thing. I literally watched that Pitmasters season 1. I guarantee you 9 episodes, 30 times a piece. And I would pause, write things down. I'd look in the background, I'm taking notes. Anybody that knows me, notes are not something that I take ever. But I was obsessed. And so, anyways, I finished. Long story short, it was 130 degrees on the asphalt that day. It was pure hell. So, no bikers showed up. The ride got canceled because of the heat.
Melt their tires.
Right. And so we're all out there with tons of meat. We turn our stuff in. I get dead last. I'm like, oh, I guess I suck. But because none of them showed up and we all brought a ton of food, the promoter said, next weekend I have a pro competition and I'm promoting.
Did you cook? What did you cook?
I just cooked 8 pork butts, 8 pork shoulders, pulled pork. So he goes, I've got a pro competition next week in Holbrook, Arizona, which is up north.
Okay.
And about 3 of the guys from the TV show that I watched were going to be there. And so it's usually about $300 to enter a contest. But he goes, I'm going to waive the entry fee for anybody that's here because you guys...
Kind of as a thank you.
As a thank you and an apology because no riders showed up.
Okay.
So I was like, you know what the heck, let's do it. And so I loaded up my wife's Murano with that one Weber smoker, no clue, go to the cook meeting.
Alone.
Just me. And, obviously I don't know anybody. But I've been selling stuff for years at that point. I'm not a shy person. And I think the best decision I made was in the cooks meeting before the contest. They asked, are there any new cooks there? And I had no problem. I just raised my hand up high.
Yeah.
And that was a good decision because everybody kind of rallied around me to kind of make sure I knew what I was doing.
So have you found that, I mean, it kind of sounds like a community, the barbecue community is like, I'm going to help you, or like, I'm going to cut you down?
I'm going to help you more than anything.
Okay.
Especially when you're new. It's a really, really tight-knit community, but that's not to say that they aren't competitive as hell.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, if you even peek at somebody's area,
like during a competition.
Yeah, like people start spreading the word that it's called shigging.
Shigging?
Yep, shigging is like copying, like you're hovering, trying to steal my secrets. So yeah, I mean, it's a very competitive, kind of secretive, but it's also kind of a currency. Like because I worked for BBQ Island, so I'm skipping. Anyways, let's rewind a second. So I go to Holbrook. 2 of my favorite guys on that show were there.
Okay.
Luckily, there was a guy who had a smoker breakdown because his was a little bit more motorized. He goes, you know what? I can't cook it, so I'm going to help you. So he didn't help me with any of the cook, but he helped me with, why can't I think of the word right now? Basically just turn-ins. Like, this is how you build your box.
Like presenting the plate?
Presentation. That's the word I was looking for.
Okay.
So I'll help you with presentation. So I cooked all the food all night by myself, didn't sleep. I laid down in the back of the Murano. Had a few drunk people walk into my camp because I was the rookie, so they put me out on the end. And anyways, long story short, I finished first place in pork, which I only did 2 more times that whole next year and a half. That's a hard thing to do. To get a first place in any category, there's 4 categories: pork, ribs, chicken, and brisket.
You went from last place
to
first place.
And keep in mind that last place, that competition wasn't really a double blind judged, like sanctioned contest. It was kind of just a backyard contest. This was the real deal. So I took a first place in pork, a third place in chicken, and a 5th place overall. And I went home with $2,000. And I'm just like, this is the greatest thing ever. And so I got some big old trophies, went home, told the wife, went back out 2 weeks later to Sedona for the same thing, same type of thing.
Okay.
I took first place in pork again. So again, that's second of 3 times. So I didn't do that again for another year. And then a 3rd, I think, in ribs, and 5th overall, and came home with $1,800 again.
I mean, are you talking like 5th place out of 5 people?
No,
or like
5th out of 35, 5th
Okay.
out of 40.
Okay.
And keep in mind, a couple of them were TV stars.
Big time.
Yeah.
Nice.
And so it was, at that point, I realized, like, okay, this wasn't just a fluke.
Yeah.
I'm good at this.
Okay.
So at that point, that BBQ Island joint that I hung out around a lot, they asked if I wanted to work there. $10 an hour, retail, but I mean, it's a big store. And so I said, yeah. And I sold my little half of C&D for $20,000.
Sounds like that would have been like a prison for you, like sitting in a retail store.
It honestly was awesome. It was
Okay.
so good because BBQ Island is as big as they are. Every time there was competitions, all the bigwigs came in there, and I ended up being kind of their guy. And so I'm like, yeah, when you come into town, what do you need? So I ended up making friends with all these world champion cooks that would come in, and then they'd invite me to their classes. So I'd go to Oklahoma and go to class. I'd go to Texas, go to class. And the shop ended up sponsoring me, so I was able to do more competitions where they paid my entry, they paid for meat. But granted, we were poor as all get out at
Yeah.
that point, because that 20 grand didn't last very long.
Yeah.
And we've got 2 kids living in Arizona, and I'm working for $10 an hour. But once I put my mind to it, it's kind of
So here's
it's
the
not going
thing.
to stop.
So we're now at $10 an hour. We've sold our marketing.
Right?
The one thing that I've always enjoyed watching how you've done it is how you get from one place to the next.
Right.
And
Right.
I mean, that's been my favorite part of the story. I mean, how we go from $10 an hour employee to we're going to go do I don't know what you call it, an internship
Yeah.
when you're in Texas, apprenticeship.
Right.
I mean, how you go from there to then owning a restaurant
Yeah.
to, I mean, I want to talk about some of the cool things that literally just BBQ
Right.
has done. But I think something that is important that defines you, Bam Bams, the whole thing was the Texas time.
Oh.
Like being authentic to Texas bar, because
Right.
I didn't know about this until you started, but I mean, people are passionate about their barbecue.
Yeah.
You've got Texas and Memphis and
It's like a religion.
all these different types of barbecue. And so,
Right.
one, how did you get to Texas? And two, like, what did that do for you?
So Texas, I was in the competition circuit, and I went to a pretty big competition that used to have was Lake Havasu. It was like 80 or 90 teams, and they came from everywhere. Anyways, I was next door to a guy named John Lewis, scrawny, kind of hipster-looking dude.
Next door, so you were
Like-
cooking next door?
Right.
Okay.
Our cook sites were next to each other.
Okay.
Anyway, he had a little pig. I'm like, that's kind of messed up. Like, we're cooking a bunch of pig, and you
Get a live pig?
A live, like, pet, little,
Like he had Wilbur.
like a little, yeah, little, I think his name was Wilbur, actually. So I went over there. I love dogs. I like all pets, but except cats. But I went over there, saw the pig, hung out with him, had no clue who he was. So, I was just being a good neighbor, and we kind of chatted through the night. He was from Austin, big, really cool smoker, and he said that he had worked in the restaurant biz, but he just wanted to try competition. And anyways, we got along great. I ended up having a pretty good competition. And then we saw each other again like 2 months later in Grand Junction, Colorado. I'm like, John, what's up, man? And anyway, same type of thing. And then we end up in Mesquite together. Now, Mesquite is like a really pivotal story. Do you know the Mesquite story?
No.
So
Well, I'm sure I
Mesquite-
do, but
Mesquite doesn't, we're not sitting here if that contest didn't happen.
okay.
So Mesquite was interesting because
This is after you met John.
So
Okay.
this would have been the third time that I had met John. But beyond the John thing was the money thing. So I went to Mesquite with $7 in our bank account. $7. And of course I didn't tell Ashley. We're living in Arizona. She generally doesn't look at the bank account very often. That's kind of my deal. And so I had sponsors to cover the trip, cover the meet. But it's very, very realistic to not win any money. Luckily I did pretty well, but you could come up with $500.
Yeah.
You can come up with a few thousand. But this was a big competition.
What's like an entrance fee for something like that?
Generally, a team is $1,000 into
Okay.
one of those, because between meet and entry.
Okay.
But then add gas and everything else, and it's a couple $1,000. Very few people make money doing it. It's definitely a hobby. But now, what's interesting about Mesquite is the very first episode of Pitmasters that I watched was that competition.
Oh,
So
really?
it was kind of neat because just 2 years
Kind of
later,
came full circle.
I was there. And so I had won a grand championship like a month prior. That was my first one. And, that's a tough thing to do. But she called me, our other brother-in-law, Trey, my cousin, was with us,
Okay.
was with me, just to hang, But she called me at about 7 in the morning. And 7 in the morning is a really crucial time for a cook that does it by himself, because turn-ins are in the morning and I've cooked all night.
Yeah.
I'm right in the middle of everything. Anyways, Ashley's bawling.
Ashley's crying?
Ashley's bawling because she looked at the bank account.
Oh, no.
And she's like, what are you doing there? We have $7. Like, this barbecue thing's done. Like, if we don't have money by the time you get home, like, you've got to get back to C&D or we're going to have to sell. Like, anyway, you can imagine the stress that adds, and that's not really great for when you're doing turn-ins. But fast forward a few hours, we're all in this huge complex for judging, or for them to announce the scores. And I took reserve grand championship, which paid $7,000, and I ended up.
So I don't know what that means. Reserve grand champion.
So that's second overall for the
whole
entire
everything.
thing. Yep. So I heard my name in almost every category, won money in each category.
Okay.
But I took reserve grand champion, which was second overall. So
Had you ever done that before?
Well, I'd won a grand championship.
Okay.
But I mean, a grand championship at the one that I won compared to reserve, 35, 40 teams compared to 120 teams,
okay.
right? And way more money at this competition.
Yeah.
So I took reserve grand, and then with that, I locked down the Nevada State Barbecue Championship. So I took the state championship too, because that accumulated with the other score.
The Nevada State Championship.
Yeah. So that was another like $3,000. And
so how many competitions did you do in Nevada?
Just
to become.
There was only 3 competitions in
okay.
Nevada that counted towards their state championship.
Got it.
And so I won grand champion at one, reserve grand champion at the other. I guess at that time there was only 2. And so anyway, it was at Casablanca Casino, and they handed me $10,000 in chips.
In chips?
In chips. Because 90% of the guys in that room were
gone.
drunk.
Yeah.
And so it's like, hey, let's have them go cash it in. And you could imagine what most of them did.
Yeah.
Well, I called my wife. I was bawling. She was bawling. I'm like, we have $10,000. I mean,
you
I
didn't
got
say
it.
we have $8,000?
I almost. Trust me. Of course, the cage is right on the other side of the blackjack tables, which are my favorite. But I came home with $10,000 and $100 bills in my hands, and that was also the competition where I finally learned who John Lewis was. And John Lewis was the pit boss of Franklin Barbecue. And so anybody that's into barbecue knows that Franklin is the biggest. It is the most popular barbecue joint in America. I mean, it's a 3-hour line every day.
And they're open just lunch, right?
They sell out of meat after lunch. I mean, they generally sell out of meat before they even open. There's usually a guy in line where they put last man standing, like a necklace around him. Like, if you're after this guy, you're probably not going to eat. So,
and it's, yeah, okay.
So
every day.
Everybody else knew who he was that whole time. And because I didn't, it kind of goes back to the book that we liked together, The Third Door.
Yeah.
I never treated him like I was a fan. I was just treated him like I was a peer.
You didn't know who he
was. I
was.
didn't know who he was. And so he liked that because everybody else kissed his butt. So anyway, fast forward about 3 months, we moved back to Utah. Don't really know why, but Ashley just wanted to be close to family. And I get a phone call from John. And he said, hey, I'm leaving Franklin to go to this other pretty famous place to take over. And do you want to come learn the restaurant side? You can move into my house. I'll pay you $500 a week, which working 90 hours a week doesn't equate to much.
Yeah.
But I'll teach you everything I need, everything you need to know about the restaurant side. And I ended up going down there for about 6 months. And that caused a whole other set of problems. But on the plus side, it taught me the whole restaurant side of barbecue. So,
okay, so
that was crucial.
I feel like everyone always has this point in their journey where, call it what you want, make it or break it, burn the ships, point of no return,
Right.
whatever it is. Would you say that Mesquite was that for you?
Yeah, I'd say there's a few of them. I think like making the decision to sell the company for
C&D?
yeah,
Okay.
for just $20,000. Like that was me saying I'm all in. Because
Okay.
I mean, $20,000, not that much money when you're married with 2 kids.
Yeah.
But then I would obviously Mesquite is probably even bigger than that. But then John Lewis, at the time, I didn't really understand what it would turn into.
Okay.
It's not like I had this hardcore goal to open a restaurant. I loved the competition side of things, but I just thought it would be a really neat experience. And if I ever did want to explore opening a restaurant, this wasn't, it's like, hey, Michael Jordan calls and says, I'll teach you basketball. Come
Yeah.
live at my house.
Yeah.
You're going to go.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, I went. But one of the best decisions I've ever made because, this guy is, in my opinion, the best cook that there is. And so it was tough on the marriage. We can get into that, but it was absolutely worthwhile. And I had her support, but it definitely got.
Well, yeah, 6 months gone. It's gonna
Yeah.
put a strain on
With
things,
no
to say
money.
the least.
Like
yeah.
with no money. I'm sending everything home.
I mean,
But-
an apprenticeship, it literally was an internship. It was like an unpaid internship, basically.
In a sense, like when you really break down the amount of hours that I was working, I mean, I was either working 2 a.m. to 1 p.m. every day, or I was working 3 p.m. to 1 a.m.
Okay.
So there was just two of us cooking, just John and I. And, down there we're just running big log-fired pits. And so there's no leaving. You have to stay there and watch it all. And it's a ton of work, but it was so much fun.
Okay.
And so it was, a lot of work, a lot of fun, learned a ton. But that's what kind of made me feel confident enough to, when I got back to Utah, to open a restaurant.
So, get back to Utah. I remember, I think it was not the day before, but as we were getting ready to open the restaurant, and we're scraping those stupid tiles.
Those just popped up in my Facebook memories the other day.
I mean, we were by hand,
Yep.
those ugly checkerboard with a pink and white.
Pink and white, like asbestos floor.
Yeah.
Horrible.
Just chipping that
was
up.
the longest day.
Trying to get the restaurant prepped
Right.
to open. And now, fast forward even further, we go from apprenticeship to opening the restaurant. And how in the world do we get from that point to feeding the Saints? I mean, you and I went and we fed the Pelicans.
Yep.
You are friends with Chris Harrison with The Bachelor.
Yeah.
My wife was stoked to be able to meet
Yeah,
Chris.
she got to
she
eat
still
lunch
talks
with him.
about it. I mean,
That's right.
how do you take barbecue and turn it into, and let's not forget where you just were, the Masters.
Ooh, the Masters was fun.
I mean, 2 years in a row, you were there when Tiger won on Sunday.
Yep.
I mean, how do you turn barbecue? How do you turn, I'm going to loiter around at this restaurant in Arizona where they were like, who is this guy?
Right.
To, I'm going to be cooking for whoever it was at the
Right.
Masters.
Progressive leasing. Plug.
Yeah.
So I think first and foremost, the product is number one. You can be a great salesman, a great networker, but I feel like I made really, really good barbecue.
Okay.
And so, no matter how much somebody likes you, if your food's not very good, you're not.
They're not going to bring
No.
you out somewhere to cook.
No.
They're going to hang
Right.
out with you if they're around you,
Right.
but they're not going to bring you out.
Right. It's not going to be some special deal where they pay extra money to bring you out and feed them. And so I think that that's number one. But number two, I love people. I network well. And a lot of it's just kind of been referral. I think so many of these things really started with BYU.
Oh, that's the other thing.
Yeah, so
I don't know how
BYU.
many cool things that we've done with BYU.
Right. So BYU football, when Peter Sarah came in, the first year we were open, just said, hey, a few of the boys have come in. They're kind of raving about the place. This is still when we're half the size we are now.
Yeah.
As far as, tiny restaurant. My office was just in the kitchen. Like I had a.
Yep. I remember that.
Yeah,
Just like a Costco
lifetime
table.
Costco
Yeah.
table. And he's like, well, do you want to give it a shot, feeding us after a game? And of course, we're like, yes. And that
You
was
say yes and figure it out after.
figure it out after, and wow, did we figure it? That was one of the most stressful nights of my life, and we've made a lot of changes since then. But the two things I wanted the food to be hot, and I wanted to make sure we didn't run out of food. And so ever since then, that relationship has grown a ton, and because of my friendships with the players and the coaches, and they're all kind of everywhere now. That's kind of where some of the bigger connections have come from. So me feeding the Saints every month, that's Taysom. We
So that
became
came
good
from
friends.
doing it through
Yeah.
BYU.
That we became good friends, when he was here, and when he went out to the Saints, he wanted to buy smokers and do a little barbecue class for the other two quarterbacks, Treu and Chase Daniels.
Okay.
And so he calls me, he goes, hey, you want to come out for Christmas and bring a couple smokers and do a little barbecue class for the other quarterbacks? And I'm just like, I'll pay you to do that, of course.
You're like, well, I get to be there with
Yeah,
them.
it's like, anyway, it was nerve-wracking. So I went, and about a week before, I called him and I said, hey, any chance I could feed the team? I'm going to be out there.
Yeah.
And he asked the chef, and the chef was cool with it. And so I went out there. I found a smoker, some backwoods guy in Louisiana. And it turned out that they already had a smoker at the facility, so that was all a waste.
Okay.
But I fed them. They beat the Falcons that week in a really like tough rivalry game.
Superstition kicks
Kind
in.
of superstition. They loved the food. Taught the class. Had a really good time. Meeting those guys.
So was it just in the class it was you?
Just me, Treu,
Taysom, and Treu.
Chase. Yeah.
Just the four of you.
Yeah. And then Andrew Gross, he was there with me.
Okay. I can only imagine. I mean, you watch
In the
Drew
quarter-
Brees,
in the
you hear
quarterback
about
class.
Drew Brees,
Yeah.
the mindset.
And you're in a little room.
Yeah.
One of the best to ever do it. Scared. I mean, I was nervous.
Yeah.
And then Cam Jordan leaks in, like smells it. He comes in.
Yeah.
A bunch of the strength coaches come in and trainers. So by the end of the class, there's probably 30 people in the little room. So then I feed them the next day, and I ended up going back there 3 of the next 5 weeks.
Back to New Orleans.
Back to New Orleans to feed the team because they loved the food and they kept winning. And so it just kind of kept going. And then the next year, the nutritionist called and she's like, okay, just once a month, pick the game that you want, and you're going to come in and do one Friday a month, and we're doing it next season too. So that all happened because of Taysom. But, Taysom gets you in the door. But, that was nerve-wracking because you really have to watch your P's and Q's there. You can't be a fan. You can't go out asking for autographs.
Yep.
Like, if somebody talks to you, you talk to them. We weren't allowed to watch practice. We weren't allowed to really leave the kitchen the first time, the second time. And we've just always really been respectful of the space there. But now it's to the point where we can go in the locker room, we can watch practice, we can go to the training room. Like, it's
the equipment
like
manager
family.
made you a jersey, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you have
I've got like
a custom
6
game
jerseys.
type jersey.
Yeah, I got game
you.
jerseys from, let's see, couple Taysom, Treu, Michael Thomas, Mark Ingram. Yeah, the Bam Bam's one that he made me, which was so awesome. And then, some signed footballs and stuff like that. But, so yeah, it's been. In fact, one of their trainers was in the restaurant the other day. He was here visiting the national parks before camp started, just last week.
Huh.
And he came in. He's like, "This was a scheduled part of the trip. We couldn't wait to see the restaurant finally." And so yeah, and then I met Chris Harrison in Austin. You mentioned him, so I met him while I was working in Austin.
Oh, really?
And he was like 3 back in line, and I just blurted out like, "Chris Harrison." He's like, "Hey, what's up, man? I love The Bachelor. I don't give a crap what anybody thinks. I'm 400 pounds. If anybody doesn't like it, I'll knock him out." And then he ended up hanging out in the smoker with me for about an hour that first day, and just wanted to watch me, cook. And then we've kind of stayed in touch ever since. So he came to the restaurant last year when, I called Jim.
He shot you a text saying they're filming. Well, they
were filming Park City. They were filming Becca's season. That's right, Becca's season. I know all about it. And so he came in and hung out, and nicest guy. I mean, all these guys, it's something that's interesting is they're so nice. Like Treu, everyone knows that Drew's a nice person, but he's probably 5 times nicer than you even imagine. And Chris is the same way. So yeah, I mean, when I go there, I try to be unassuming. I don't expect anything. I just do my job. I try to be nice to everybody, and then things just kind of go from there. So
I believe that, like, when you break down success, there's usually 3 factors to it. I think there's skill, which you hit on, kind of like the strength of your barbecue. There's the environment that you're in. I wouldn't say that your environment helped you, per se, living in Utah, being a smoker.
Yeah.
Being in Arizona by yourself. Right. I don't think that was necessarily huge. But the third thing, I think, is mindset. Mm-hmm. And I think that actually mindset is probably the most important of those. And you've hit on it a lot without saying it, that, I mean, you can't be a fan. You have to have that certain mindset that you're going to go in, you're going to do your job, and you're going to just treat these people like people.
Right. Well, I don't even know that was a decided on mindset for me.
I think it's just natural.
As much as that was just kind of how I was raised. And so you just kind of have to, like, sit back. I mean, you're talking to the most elite people. You can only imagine, like, Drew Brees can't go out anywhere.
No.
Like, Taysom around here, it's getting to that point in New Orleans. Like, we used to go out every time I was out there, but now it's once in a while because everyone knows him.
He's blowing up.
But here, especially, it was
it's like him and Jimmer.
He could, Oh, they can't go anywhere here.
Yeah.
And so it's there's nothing they haven't heard. There's nothing no, there's nothing that somebody hasn't done to try to get an angle.
Yeah.
So you just do your best to just sit back and kind of let things happen naturally, and you just no expectations, don't ask for anything. And
You got to be kind of like who you are.
right, and that's and that's always kind of paid off. And so, and I think it's because it's natural that people realize that it's not an act. I'm not just acting this way to get you to like me or whatever. It's just
you're not acting when you say how much you love The Bachelor. You truly love.
I love The Bachelor.
The Bachelor.
Who doesn't like drama? I like the Paradise Island, or what is it? Why can't I think of it right now? Bachelor in
Paradise.
I like that. Even that's a train wreck.
Of course
I love
you do.
it. I love it.
And of course, I know there's probably been more couples come out of that.
Yeah, how about that? Hey.
Do we know this? This is now a Bachelor.
What's that term about friction? Like the more trials and fire and craziness there are?
Yeah. So I have to ask, if you were to look back, all the people you met, all the things you've done, which advice are you the most happy you didn't listen to?
That's a really good question.
Everyone always talks about, I got the best advice from this person.
Right.
I think sometimes the best advice you get is the advice you don't listen to.
So I would say that one of my greatest strengths, I'm trying to say this the most politically correctly, there's the way that I would naturally say it. So I really do have ADHD. I joke about it, but I take it seriously.
Yeah.
And it's kind of one of my missions is to make it more, give it more awareness. Because there's a lot of CEOs. It's funny, there's a lot of successful CEOs and there's a lot of prisoners.
You have one of the two.
It's like there's no middle ground with ADHD. And luckily I was raised right. I have my beliefs, right? And but there's a couple of things with ADHD that really help a CEO or a business owner. One is we have no executive function. Now, that means that we don't assess risk very well.
Okay.
So
hence, I'm going to go to Mesquite with $7 in my bank account, and
right.
I'm okay with it.
I'm going to lie to my wife to buy a smoker. I'm going to start a restaurant with an 80% failure rate. The whole time I just had confidence. Like
some people call that irresponsible, just so you know.
Well, right, and many people did. And I'll get to that. And so, but the other thing is we produce only about 10% of the dopamine that everybody else does, that a neurotypical person does. So
you're using big words now.
Right, well, it's because I don't like to say normal person because I'm normal.
Yeah.
I may be fatter than you, but I'm still normal. But because of that, we're always looking for a dopamine hit.
Okay.
And in business, that can be good because we really chase, when we find something that we love, we kind of have blinders. And while that can be bad, it can also be very good. And in this case, it turned out really good. I never, ever got good grades. I hated school. I mean, I was the hide the report card kid. I graduated high school because I talked a teacher into it.
Yeah.
And I mean, so my whole life up till I was 18, I felt like a failure because
that's what society told you were.
That's what society said. And so it was kind of cool to have something that I excelled at and I knew I was good at it. And then being able to work with somebody as good as John really gives you confidence. And the best advice I didn't listen to, I hate to call my dad out, but he was very sweet about it. But he sat me down and goes, "Do you really want to do this?"
Yeah.
With the restaurant.
Talking about the barbecue.
Yeah. Like, do you really want to open a restaurant? He's looked into it. He has family in the business.
Everyone's scared of the food business.
Well, right. And he goes, I really think that's a mistake. And it's funny, like, it just bounced off.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I appreciate it. That's sweet that you care.
Yeah.
But, like, can you build that wall tomorrow, please? He's
a
contractor. And I never, ever, I had already kind of made my mind. I mean, I had a few people that had just said, don't do it. And it's funny looking back because I've met so many people that have come to me for advice on opening restaurants.
Okay.
Which I still don't
you
think
give
I know
them
what.
You give them the advice, don't do it?
No, never. Because I'm a dreamer. I'm all about that. Like,
yeah.
You only live once, so try it. But at the same time, the one thing that I did right was I did see a lot of people when they open restaurants, they wanted everything to be perfect. Like, I opened Bam Bams. This blows people away, but I opened Bam Bams for $45,000.
Yeah.
And my ADHD cousin, I mean, I kind of skipped him earlier, and I shouldn't, because this is a pivotal moment. But he's the one that called me. He's like, "Are you opening a restaurant?"
Yeah.
I was like, "Well, I mean, yeah, I kind of want to." He's like, "Come over here, let's talk." And that night, I left with a $45,000 check.
Just like that.
Just like that. And so it's a lot of risk for him.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, looking back,
it worked out.
It worked out. He got 50% of the business. I bought some of it out, so now I own a little bit more. But in hindsight, it's like, dude, you got the deal of a lifetime. But he took a risk on me, and that
Absolutely.
means the world. And so, and he didn't even think twice. He's just like, he believed in it, and has been a great partner. So I always tell people, the food comes first, customers, second. Everyone says it should be customer first, but do you want me to put you ahead of the food?
No, I want
the food has to be good, right?
I need some good brisket when I show up.
And I think the other thing I'm great at is people. So I've found some great staff, and they've stayed very loyal. I feel like I'm a good boss. So, but yeah, I've had the same cook and GM for almost 6 years, and we've been open 6 years, so they've been with me since the beginning. And so, having those if it wasn't for them, I couldn't go out and do a lot of these cool things that I get to go out and do. But then I just kind of used common sense. As I had cash, we would blow a wall out and expand. And, now we're adding a drive-through. Like, I have failed. Like, we opened Spanish Fork, closed Spanish Fork 2 years later. Like, it just didn't really pan out down there. But I don't care. Pride is another big killer, too.
For sure. I mean, so I have a part of a coaching program, and she talks about you never fail. You fall forward, you learn, you get going.
That is so great.
Absolutely
right. I mean, you do learn from mistakes, and that's, I realize now that I love the location I'm in. That's kind of all I ever wanted, was just one really great location. And that's not to say that down the road I won't sell out and try to, go bigger, but only if I'm into it, and only if I can come very close to duplicating what we have right now. So, but I want to maximize what we have there, with the drive-through, with delivery, with things like that. And so yeah, I'm one of those people, though, that money is one thing. Of course, I want to be comfortable, but I also don't really want. If I want to go golfing, I want to go golfing.
Bigger does not mean better.
No,
it doesn't.
For me, quality, what we all kind of refer to as quality of life, is important. If I want to go golfing at 1 o'clock for 2 hours, I want to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And so the more restaurants I open, or the bigger I try to get, the less time I have with my family, the less time I have to go off and do these cool things that kind of just fall into my lap. And so,
you can't go out to a week with the Masters if you're chained to running multiple locations at the restaurant.
Absolutely.
So.
And that's a big, big deal for me. And I think that there's nothing wrong with wanting money. It's just, you got to find what you want and have that be your driving thing. And I realize now that if I worked for somebody else, I would go insane.
Yeah. Well, everyone has their own motivating factor. They call it your purpose, your why, whatever it is. You said something about having failures. We talked about that. What's your favorite failure?
Favorite failure is being separated from my wife for 6 months.
Oh, that's a weird answer.
I know it is.
Okay.
It was the biggest growth experience I've ever had.
Okay.
So, do you want the little background story to that?
Sure. Yeah, this is something I know. I
know that I get a little bit accused of being too real sometimes, but I think the world needs that. And so, right before I opened the restaurant, Ashley, the barbecue wall hit, and there was no money coming in. I was gone in Austin for a long time, and anyway, one night I came home and she's just like, "Get out, I'm done." And I thought it was just like, okay, I'm gonna go sleep with my grandma's for a few days.
I remember this.
Oh yeah, it was. Thinking back on it, it's funny because it turned out good, but it was horrible. And I've been through bad divorces with my family, and that's a whole nother show. But I think because of that past with my parents, like, this one was a little more serious. Like, it scared me to death. So anyways, I go to my grandma, expecting to be there for the weekend, and I ended up being there for 6 months. So
she's up in Heber, right? So you were...
No, she's in Provo. I was down in River Bottoms, my grandma and grandpa. And so
that's right.
The restaurant, I told this, there's one other podcast that I kind of told the story in, but that first 6 months of the restaurant where we were just insanely busy. And I didn't really have Annie or Bryce yet, so I was cooking, managing, cutting. I was everything. Like, I didn't get to spend a single day with my kids, didn't get to sleep in my own house. Like, I was going through, like, the worst 5 months of my life, while on the flip side, going through kind of the most exciting 5 months of my life.
Yeah.
And so, but because of that, it never felt like an exciting time. The lights went off and I was bawling in the back.
Yeah.
And it gave me, I worked so hard on myself during that time, not just working hard at the restaurant, but going home and spiritually, mentally, just trying to save this thing and just coming to terms with the fact that there's really only one person that I can persuade, or how do I put this? I can't change Ashley's mind, so all I can do is work on me and just pray that God softens her up somehow.
Yeah.
And I was fully, after 5 months, I was fully convinced that it was over. And I figured out how I could be happy without Ashley.
Yeah.
Especially with the big man's help. But once that decision came, once I realized that I could make it on my own, that's kind of when the miracle happened, and Ashley softened up, and we figured it out.
You have to be okay with yourself almost first.
Right.
You have to learn to stand on your feet, be by yourself.
Exactly right. And that's, well, and God.
Not by yourself.
For me, God plays a huge role in my life. And if it wasn't, that relationship needed to strengthen.
Yep.
I needed to grow up. And, I needed to feel that risk or that threat of losing.
Well, let's be honest, without as big of an event, it probably wouldn't have happened.
Right.
If there would have been a fight here or there, but you're still at home. You know what
especially
I mean?
with me.
It wouldn't have happened.
I need like a baseball bat in the face. Like, I need a wall.
Yeah.
Every great thing that's ever happened to me has been because I hit some horrible wall where I thought my life was going to end. And that was probably the single most important, because it brought us closer together. It made me realize that I had already at that point been through some pretty tough stuff, but it made me realize that there was nothing I couldn't handle.
Kind of gives you some clarity on what's important to you.
For sure. And it made me feel great that I could handle the restaurant on my own and work that hard. So yeah, as far as growth goes, and the best kind of failure that ever happened to me as far as reward goes, that would be the one.
Okay. So this is a weird question, but I like it.
You ask good questions.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'm impressed.
So I like to measure. People call it, how do you measure or define success? I like to think of it as impact, and the way I think of it is, who's going to show up to my funeral and what are they going to say about me?
Right.
So for you, what do you want people to say about you at that time? I mean, if you think about it, because ultimately what that is that's your legacy.
Right.
It's like, what do you want to leave people, like, as you come across people, as you meet them? I mean, how do you want them to remember you?
I think for me, it is always going to be that if I ever needed something, I know I could always go to Cameron.
Yeah.
Whether it be charity, I'm definitely giving to a fault, and it's, if you see my P&L at the end of the month, every month, it's like, you see the discount line.
The family discount?
Well, yeah, I mean, they are broken down, but, if somebody's going through something tough, whatever it is, it's, we don't ever obviously publicize it, even though I slightly am right now. I won't get specific, obviously, but there are things that are more important than the business.
Yeah.
And we'll always come back to you. So I always want to be, that's what I would want to be known for, is that you give the shirt off his back for anybody, especially to those that are struggling or suffering or just going through something, something hard. And so yeah, I think that would be, family is a huge one. I always want to be known as a good dad and a good husband. Yeah. I think I have a long way to go for that, but I'm working on it. progress, right?
Absolutely.
Progress, not perfection.
Joy's in the journey, not the destination.
Amen. And so, but I do want people to look back and just know that I would do just about anything for anybody that I could, at least.
Okay.
So yeah.
Well, maybe we should. Kind of got a little serious right there.
Yeah, dude. There's nothing wrong with serious. We can get back screwed off if you want. I said heck a bunch in this. That means I respect you. Because I say hell.
Oh, you just said it.
Oh, I know. I was trying to make it good.